Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, your home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. In today's video, we're pleased to welcome the CEO of Coya Therapeutics to the program. This is a company we covered a while back on the channel. We wanted to get an update. Before we do though, take a second, hit the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let us know in the comments section below if you've heard of Coya Therapeutics before and if you're currently holding shares. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's interview. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got Arun Swaminathan on the channel. He's the CEO of Coya Therapeutics. Now, this is a company we've covered previously on the channel. There's been a lot going on at the organization, so we wanted to invite Arun back on the program to get an update. Thank you so much for making the time today.
Thank you, Bryce. I really appreciate you inviting me to be on your show.
No, it's great. And as we said earlier, it's high time we get an update out on Coya. So first question, I guess, because this is your first time on the channel, can we get a quick introduction to yourself and how you ended up with Coya Therapeutics?
No, my pleasure. So my background is all pharmaceutical, biotech, 25 years plus of experience in this space. I originally have a PhD in the transplant space as well. So familiar with immunology, which is the core of what we do at Coya. I always like to say I grew up at Bristol Myers Squibb doing a lot of different things. I spent a lot of time there, and I'm always thankful to them for the opportunities I got there. The last 10 years, Bryce, I've been in the C-suite of multiple small public companies similar to Coya. And I've struck a lot of deals. I was the chief business officer in most of these companies, and I've done over $6 billion in deals. And that's kind of what brought me into Coya, and I can get into that a little bit. I met Howard Berman, who I believe you have interviewed before. As you know, he's a very passionate and driven founder, CEO of Coya. I just loved his passion for the company. But more importantly, when I talked to him, I realized what a wonderful scientific approach Coya has. And at that point, what he wanted was someone like me to come in and help drive some business development deals for Coya, which is exactly what we did when we struck the Dr. Reddy's partnership, a $700 million partnership. And then about 7 months ago, I assumed the role as CEO of Coya, while Howard remains as our executive chair.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you're right. We have had Howard on the program since our last discussion with Howard. What would you say are some of the key milestones or progress updates with Coya?
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall exactly when you talked to Howard, but I think a lot of things have happened since that 2023, 2024 timeframe. One thing I want to kind of take a step back and say what is amazing about where we are today, Bryce, is this. We have done 4 investigator-initiated trials, so 4 small clinical trials, 3 different indications: ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, frontotemporal dementia, which is another devastating disease where there's no FDA-approved therapies, and Alzheimer's disease. And what is remarkable, and that I think kind of gets to the essence of your question of what has happened since, what is remarkable is across these 3 indications, across 4 studies, something consistent keeps happening, which is that we stop the progression of these diseases. In the case of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, we have shown early data that we're stopping these patients from getting worse, which nobody has done even in a small scale to date. That gives us a lot of confidence that the bigger trial, which we plan to start soon, is going to be successful. Same thing we saw very recently, we announced in a small group of patients with frontotemporal dementia, we stabilized the cognitive decline, meaning these patients' cognitive ability did not get worse. And we saw that with just one component of our main product, in mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease patients in two separate investigator-initiated trials, one open label, one well-controlled, placebo-controlled. So, and then if you look back at the science, everything lines up. So that's what's happened probably since you talked to Howard last time, is we have building a lot of evidence that supports why we think we always believed in our approach and our technology. Now we're building the evidence that says everything is lining up. This is got a high probability that it's going to do what we expect it to do in the bigger clinical trials. So I think that, to me, is the most exciting part of where we are now. Is it looks real possibilities. Our vision at Coya is to make these types of diseases, ALS, frontotemporal dementia, livable diseases. We want patients to be able to live a normal life, taking a therapy, and be able to live with these diseases, right? We're not even at this point thinking cure. That would be great, but that itself will transform the life of these patients. So we have made a lot of progress in terms of, generating some of this data I talked to you about. We made a lot of progress in strengthening our intellectual property, Bryce, which is very important. We have such a strong IP portfolio now that really protects our products. So there's a big commercial protection to it as well. We struck a partnership with Dr. Reddy's, a $700 million partnership since you have talked to Howard, which allows us to get a steady line of sight to non-dilutive money. And as a small public company, that is fantastic for us and also great for our investors, because then that we're not completely reliant on the capital markets for all of our cash needs. So that's just to highlight some of probably the top line things that have happened since you talked to Howard.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say you guys have been busy, and it sounds like the pieces are all starting to come together quite nicely there. Now, you mentioned some of these larger scale clinical trials. In terms of your current priorities, initiatives, what are you focused on right now?
Yeah, so our number one priority right now is to get the data package needed to start our phase 2B study to the FDA by the end of this month. So we're basically talking end of June. And then once the FDA, assuming the FDA gives us the green light, which we fully anticipate, we will then initiate that ALS clinical trial. And that trial has the potential to be registrational or pivotal, because there is precedence for the FDA to approve drugs based on one trial, well-controlled, randomized trial. That's what we plan to do. If the data supports it, there's a good chance that the FDA will look at it and see if it is something that can be approved on one trial. But that is our number one focus. We expect to start that trial this year. So that's number one. Number two is to continue to move our pipeline forward. So we will continue to generate more data in the investigator-initiated trial in frontotemporal dementia. So we should have a readout of the full results of that, towards the end of this year, hopefully. And then we are generating a lot of preclinical data on our Coya 303, which is a combination of our proprietary Coya 301, which is the low-dose interleukin 2, with GLP-1 agonists, these weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, because they have potential in diseases like Alzheimer's. But what we have shown preclinically is that combining, really 1 + 1 is better than 2, right? And so we're very excited about that. I think that has such untapped potential for Coya that we're going to create a lot of value around that asset, not just this year, but in the coming year as well. So we'll continue to generate that data. We'll have more preclinical data on that later this year as well. So, and then we continue to build and develop our intellectual property and strengthening all that. So there's a lot happening, and but that's our priority right now. These are our priorities.
Sure. Yeah, it's fascinating. Anytime I talk to these style of companies, you get so much optimism for the potential of medicine and where this could go. Now, neurodegeneration is a big theme right now. We've seen a lot of large pharmaceutical companies focusing on this area. Can you talk about how Coya Therapeutics is positioning yourself and maybe some of your key differentiators in this space?
That is one of the most exciting things and one of the things that drew me to Koya. Neurodegenerative diseases are the next frontier. I mean, it kind of neurodegenerative diseases are where oncology was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? Today, of course, there's still a long way to go in cancer treatments, but there's a lot more options for patients. Certain cancers, at least, have become quite manageable. That is exactly what our vision is for neurodegenerative diseases, is to kind of get to that place where cancer got to, right? Where you actually have options for patients. You actually can significantly prolong the survival of patients. So that is what is exciting about neurodegenerative diseases. For that same reason, big pharmas, as you mentioned, are also excited about that space, because I think as we do, they also recognize that is the next frontier. That's where there's going to be such untapped need. The unmet need is so high that it allows for two things. One is because you're comparing sometimes to nothing in these diseases, there's nothing out there, you can get to the market sometimes more efficiently, because anything that works is better than nothing at all. And so that's another reason why I think you're starting to see a lot of companies focus on neurodegenerative diseases, because there's just such a high unmet need. If you take diseases like ALS, there's barely anything that works. These patients die in 3 to 4 years after diagnosis. Same thing with FTD. Patients progress really fast. There's nothing approved. So that's what brings us there. And what we do different in that space is we take an approach that is scientifically elegant. We are trying to address neuroinflammation. We get to the source of these diseases. I like to compare ALS and FTD to kind of forest fires, right? They're like a burning, raging forest fire. We're going to put out the fire. That's what we do when we address neuroinflammation. Then they stop spreading fast, and they're not going to be as destructive as if you just let them go. Forest fires can be rapidly progressing and rapidly destructive, right? Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, which we're also focused on, they're more like burning embers of coal. They're going to be equally destructive at the end, but they kind of move slower. And so we're addressing both, but our immediate focus is on ALS and FTD. Obviously, those are the first two things that we want to pursue. What differentiates us is that we're addressing a mechanism called the regulatory T cells, that by keeping them functional, we prevent the immune system of the person from attacking and hurting and damaging the nerve cells that are healthy, which is what leads to the progression of these diseases. Then, by addressing it at the source, we kind of stop the progression of the disease. That's our goal. And then we also know these diseases are complex priced, just like oncology. One size doesn't fit all, right? People eventually figured in cancer that you can't just hit one thing and hope it works. You kind of have to have multiple mechanisms. So that's what we're doing with our combination approach. These two things really set us apart from all our peer groups, a lot of the people that are working on the space. I think that's what sets us apart. And more people are starting to recognize that our approach is elegant, but it also works. It is relatively de-risked. There's nothing called zero risk in biotech, but it's relatively de-risked because we're also taking known targets that have been shown to work in other diseases, and we're applying them to neurodegenerative diseases, which takes out a lot of certain uncertainty on things like safety, et cetera, which is sometimes the primary reason drugs don't make it, right? It's safety. And I won't say anything is completely removed, but we have definitely decreased the probability of unexpected safety events and increase the probability that we will work and be safe. So I think that's what separates us.
Yeah, no, good response. And I like the fire analogy as well, helpful to understand how these diseases spread. Now, you mentioned earlier the Dr. Reddy's partnership. I wanted to spend a few minutes on that. Can you give us some of the details and next steps here?
Absolutely. So we entered into a partnership with Dr. Reddy's, big multinational company, 12 to 13 billion market cap, with a significant commercial footprint in the United States, Europe, and major markets. So that's actually important to know as well. The total deal value was 700 million. What we gave in exchange to Dr. Reddy's is the right for them to commercialize our lead product, Coya 302, which is a proprietary low-dose IL-2 combined with the CTLA-4 for ALS only. So for just one indication, the first indication. In exchange, they have already provided us upfront money, significant upfront money that helps us fund this ALS trial that I talked about, the phase 2 trial. And when we get the approval from the FDA to start the trial, and when we dose the first patient, we are eligible and will get 4.2 and 4.2, so a total of 8.4 million from Dr. Reddy's coming our way in a non-dilutive manner. So, that's also nice because it's cash coming in and there's no equity exchange in return. And so that sets us up well. And then in addition to that, we have line of sight to about 40 million more in the next few years, assuming, of course, that we hit all our milestones as planned. And then we get mid-teen royalties on the sales, and ALS alone has the potential for billion-plus sales in the US alone. And globally, you're talking about a 2 to 3 billion market potential. So not only can we hopefully address the acute unmet need in these patients, but these are commercially attractive indications as well. So, it's as a public company, it's also important that we have line of sight that we actually producing products that have a commercial potential, and these have a really good commercial potential. So we are eligible to get mid-teen royalties and up to 650 million in sales milestones. So it puts us in a unique place as a small company where we have line of sight to a steady stream of non-dilutive money, assuming that all of everything works and that we're hitting our milestones. So that's our structure. But as a partner, so that's just a structure. But as a partner, they bring to us a lot more than the money and the check, right? They are a big company with an organizational footprint that we leverage. Their synergy, what they do, they have some core competencies that obviously they do better than us, like commercialization, manufacturing. They have a big regulatory team. They've interacted with the FDA on many things. So we leverage all of this in the partnership as well. So it's a symbiotic and synergistic relationship that I think together we create more value than some of the individual companies.
Yeah, it makes sense. I appreciate the clarity there. Now, a good segue, I guess, to an update on financial position here as well. Can you talk about Coya's current financial position and some of the key investors or shareholders in the company?
Certainly. So we reported in the end that as of end of March, we had approximately 35 million in cash. And we have said that that takes us deep into 2026. So we're well funded right now to take us through many of the key milestones. And as I said, we are expecting to receive non-dilutive milestone payment from Dr. Reddy's of 8.4 million later this year as well. And we could get other additional non-dilutive money, not only from Dr. Reddy's, but from potentially other strategic partnerships we may enter into, for example, with the GLP-1 combinations, or funding from, we had a $5 million investment from the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation to support our FTD trial. So things like that, investments like that, or grants from such organizations can also help us bolster our cash position without any equity involved, right? So those are very likely, or at least we're always pursuing those opportunities. And so far, we've been pretty successful in our track record in executing those kinds of things. So that's kind of where our cash is. And our primary investors, I think was your question, Greenlight Capital, David Einhorn, who I think anybody a lot of your followers probably know him well, is 9.9% stake in Coya. So I'm only sharing with you, obviously, the public filers that have positions in us. AIGH is another healthcare-focused group that has about 8+% in the company. Howard Berman, our founder and former CEO and current chairman, has a significant position in the company as well. And then we have public disclosures from groups like Vanguard that they own more than 5%. And then we got 2 or 3 investors that are in the 3 to 4%, 2% range, that some of them do file, some of them don't. So I want to be cautious not to mention their names here. But, we have a very solid investor group. And I think what's important, Bryce, also is that if you look at our history, these investors have stayed with us from the start. So, that I think that speaks volumes to them and their trust in us. Because I think they all see, I hope I'm speaking on their behalf, but I think that means that they all see potential that is beyond where we are today at Coya. And that's why, nothing validates us more to me than, a lot of our current investors continuing to stay in our story. That tells us that we're doing something right. We're doing something that the investors definitely believe is going to make a difference. And that's what I'm excited about. At the end of it, I am a big believer in we got to do what's right for the patient. If you keep the patient at the center of everything we do, the rest will follow. Shareholder value, everything follows, because then, the end customer is getting something that is going to make a meaningful difference to their lives. Value, everything will come immediately with that. So we're laser focused right now on execution. We are very conservative with our cash. We do not burn much cash. And if you have looked at our history, we have managed to generate a lot of clinical data and data without really spending a lot of our own money through grants, through foundations, through partnerships. And we will continue to do that kind of creative ways of moving the ball forward without necessarily always spending tons of money.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Excellent interview today. I wanted to give you the opportunity to close out, talk about kind of that long-term vision you just alluded to in terms of the shareholder confidence. If there's any final points maybe we didn't touch on yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to reiterate our vision is to make these diseases like ALS, FTD livable diseases. And we believe that vision is within reach for us. Based on all the evidence to date, we feel pretty strongly that our probability of success is relatively high. And therefore, we do think that we're going to create a lot of value for patients and for shareholders as well in the not only coming months, but coming year, so on, because we are going to initiate this significantly big ALS study, which I think will be a critical milestone. And then we've got a lot behind it, including the potential for transformational strategic partnerships, either with our GLP-1 combinations or other assets we have in our pipeline. So this, I think, a steady value creation for Coya in the upcoming months and year, and potential for, upsides that we can't obviously guide to as well. So I know I'm very excited for where we are, and I feel pretty bullish about our prospects, both short-term and mid-term.
Arun, we appreciate the time today. Look forward to following this story as it progresses. You guys, if you have any additional questions about Coya for the management team, leave them in the comment section below. Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you back here tomorrow.